As a mayor of Borough of Collingswood, where he's held several elected offices since 1989. During his tenure as mayor, the borough has a series of redevelopment successes and commercial and residential projects. In 2011, Forbes magazine named Collingswood one of the 10 most transformed communities in America. That's a round of applause for this mayor. Congratulations. Mayor Malley heads up the law firm of Malley & Associates, a law firm with over 30 years of experience representing private and public entities in economic development and land use projects, and his experience as a trial attorney. Would you please join with me in welcoming Mayor Malley?
Thanks, Sharon. Thank you. So good morning. So one of the things I've learned as an elected official is it's better for me to roam around and talk because it's always harder to hit a moving target. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've spoken some time before the association, and I am always happy to speak at an event in the morning that has a full bar. That's a first for me. I've never done that before. Feels a little awkward that I passed by it, but it's still nice to know it's here. So this topic, when I got this topic, I was like, Sharon McCullough called me up. I was like, oh, great, Sharon, thanks. That's really a lot of meat and substance on that one. That'd be really great to discuss. So I Googled it a little bit and was shocked to see all of the sites, every organization, every cause, everybody has their recommended ways to speak with elected officials, to lobby them, to present their issues. And every single one of them, the first thing is to not be dressed the way you are all dressed today. What is that? When did government finance officers start coming dressed like it's oh, that's right, there's an open bar at the same time. So there's a few different things. Look, part of, I think a little unique on this, not only am I the elected official that people come to talk to me about it, but about different issues, but we also represent a lot of towns. So I spend a lot of time, with new towns trying to figure out, how do I talk to this mayor? How do I talk to these council people? How do we, establish that rapport so that we can get things done? And in the work that we do, the redevelopment work we do, especially when we go into a town that's never done it before, it's a real treat because everything that we're teaching them, and frankly, we also work with some of the CFOs too, is opposite of everything else they've ever learned. All the rules, all the standards, everything that's strict. And when you're dealing in redevelopment, there's a much wider berth on a lot of different issues. So it can be fun. It can be really interesting. But I think, some of the obvious things are be concise. For most of the elected officials that you're dealing with, that elected official position is what they do for fun. It's their hobby. It's what they do on the side. Most of them work. Most of them have a real job and families that they would like to go see every few minutes, for a few minutes here and there, but the key is being concise. And when it comes to financial issues, you guys are so deep in the weeds and know it so deeply. And I was told my CFO isn't here today. Betty Jo Pigliacelli's not here today, but Betty Jo knows it, can go into every detail of everything. And we really don't need to know everything deep in the weeds. And when you're presenting to elected officials, what I have found works the best is you can give them all the detail. You can give them, all the data and the spreadsheets and everything, but you really need to put the time into what's the hard part, which is creating some kind of an executive summary that has what is going to be critical for them. Your budget's coming out and you're getting ready to go for the budget. Well, okay, what's this increase mean to the average home? What are the high points of the things that we're doing? What have we cut? Just the talking points and putting those things together. And a lot of times, making the concise summary is so much harder than developing all of the detail and the in-depth analysis. One of my favorite lines is an Abraham Lincoln line that he would sign letters from time to time and say, sorry, this letter is so long, but I didn't have the time to make it shorter. And that's really what is critical on, for me, is, a page. It can all the important stuff can fit on a page, but I know from having prepared them to give them to elected officials, it's not the easiest thing to do, but it really is the kicker. The kicker is to be concise. I know that, just in negotiations and when you're doing your business, your regular business, to get things done, to get somebody else to do or understand your position and what you're doing, a key part of it is to know the guy on the other side of the table, to understand who they are. For elected officials, most of them are in it just because it's a hobby. They want to do something for town. Sometimes they have very specific things that they want to do for town. For new folks coming in, they've beat the other guys because they said they were gonna paint the municipal building or whatever their issue is. That was the siren call for them in their election. Obviously is going to be something that you're going to want to know when you're going in to deal with them, so that you can try to either accommodate that, help make that happen, show them the reasons why that can't happen. Like if they're yelling that their big thing is they're going to build a wall, right? Then you want to know that and either try to talk them off the ledge about building that wall, or give them a very frank, concise explanation of what it's going to take to build the wall, what you got to do. And help them, especially for new people coming in. They never did it before, and it's different. It's just so different. What we have found, I've been doing it way too long, but for people that come in, that have worked with us, that are new, to get them to begin to understand how to translate their idea into a policy that has support from the public. It's not something you do overnight. My analogy is it's like turning an oil tanker. You can take that oil tanker and hit the wheel hard to the left, and then about 3-4 minutes later, it begins to slowly turn. Like it's really, new folks have to get an understanding about how long it takes, how hard it is to get messages out to the public, how many times you have to keep saying the same thing over and over again in different formats. Today's world with social media, you have to do it. You have to do it with postcards. You have to do it, when you go to Wawa to get a cup of coffee, you need to talk up policy. But it's important for you to know that, because I know it can be frustrating sometimes when you go in and, well, look, it's simple. Look, it's just 1 and 1, 2. Look, that's all. We just have to do this. We're done. We have to make that cut. We have to do that change. But the impact of that on how that, and getting public support for that, especially if it's not a good, not a happy thing, it's going to mean a tax increase, or it's going to mean there's less people working at some department, is something that it really helps for you to understand, to present it in a way that they can begin to accommodate and get a policy, get that public support for it. We've done a lot of redevelopment in our town a long time ago, and when we started and nobody was prepared for it, I think, actually models I use all the time in our work now that we put together about doing presentations for people, a lot of financial projections, calculations, but we did a lot of calculations and presented to people what it would cost to do nothing. So instead, we had a big apartment complex, 1,000-unit apartment complex that was the end of the world for us. And it was behind in their taxes, it was half empty, it was viewed as being discouraged. For those of you who don't know Collingswood, we sit right next to the city of Camden, and back in the mid-90s, it was viewed as being the worst. It was the end of us. And we sold this plan to where we were going to invest money into this project. Well, the information that we used, and using our financial folks as a key component, one of the thoughts we had were, well, people don't understand what it costs just having it be there, just having it be the way it is. So we had to do analysis of like what the police costs are, how much construction code time was spent on it, all of those issues. And that, from your perspective, if there's a major policy initiative or there's something that electeds are trying to move ahead, filling out that gamut of what information they need and supplying that to them is just such a vital role. And you are a backstop for the things that most elected officials don't know. They don't remember. They can't, they've never been exposed to it before. Municipal finance is such an odd duck in the way we do a lot of things that it's really helpful if you know what they need to achieve and help them move it along. Conversely, it's also good for you every once in a while to say to them, let's go over this again. This is what this is really going to cost. I hear all the CFOs of my time telling me no, do you know, this is what this is going to cost. But at least knowing what they need to do in order to get public acceptance of different policy initiatives of a budget is key in the information that you supply to them. You really need to begin, to analyze it and know what they've got to do so that you can put that information in a format that they can actually use. One of the things that I would urge you all in this day and age, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but is be careful how you use emails. Only because of our wonderful Oprah. I had an occasion yesterday, because there's some discussions going on, to have to call people up and say, listen, walk away from the keyboard. We can't be having these discussions, these internal discussions on email, because they're just going to read differently out there. They're going to read differently if they get Oprah'd. And because your electeds are working and you can't get hold, you guys are there around during the day, maybe they stop by, in the evening, you don't get to have face-to-face with them that much. So email is a big key, but email is just, I just have seen so many instances in which really innocent communications or discussions or conceptual plans get exposed that way and just ruined. I mean, it's just, email is, you just need to think of it as though it's a letter to the editor that you're sending to somebody else. And if someone outside is going to read it, you need to be comfortable that it's going to be suitable. It's going to be okay. Some of the other pieces on this, I'll give you an example of kind of the best public presentation that I ever got was a 10-year-old kid who came in a suit, I might add, looked like his first communion suit, but came in a suit, but had everything mapped out. He came to talk to us about he wanted us to allow chickens in town, okay? And he had all his research done. He gave the backup, asked specifically for what he wanted us to do, which is also a real key component. If you're going to have a meeting with the elected, know what your purpose is, what your goal is going in. Look, I just want to inform them. I just want to cover my tail and be able to say, I told him or her, this is what's going to happen. This is what the impact is. But and have that be the purpose of your meeting and get that done and follow it up in some way to make sure that you confirm, look, we went over this, we went over these issues and reviewed them. But this presentation from this kid was just so straightforward, so simple, concise, had the backup, gave us all the materials that supported what he had to say. And really the most convincing argument, of course we haven't done anything about chickens yet, but it's still on the burner. We're still looking at it and trying to figure out what to do. When I started this, if I ever thought that I'd be dealing with chickens in backyards in my little urban town, I would have laughed you right out of town. Okay, let me take a peek at my notes that I had here. Any questions? Anybody have anything? Any questions or any issues you want to talk about? No, thanks so much. I appreciate that. Don't raise questions that you aren't prepared to answer. Part of your role with an elected official is to provide the data, kind of provide the backup. And I know that most of your conversations are budget related, are all related to, you probably deal with electeds most of the time. In my redevelopment world, we have a lot more contact than that. But in dealing for you, most all the times it's budgets. And it is for the electeds, for the most part, I think when they go into budgets, all they're looking to do is not get killed. To come out of it at the back end and not have 100 people at the budget hearing yelling and screaming at them. Every once in a while, they may have initiatives or something they want to do, but at least my experience with them has been they're really just looking to get through this with as low and keep it down as low as we can, or at a number that's manageable, that is that tipping point that I don't think they'll be out to tar and feather me. And for your purposes, obviously, I mean, every finance officer I know is always cutting more and telling folks to justify it for a third time why they need this in the budget. But from your perspective, the information and everything, you need to be the full total resource and have everything down so that whatever questions may be coming, whatever issues you raise and pose with them, you really need to have some kind of data to help them with so that they can analyze. And it doesn't have to be right at that meeting, but be able to follow up and get that data to them as quickly as they can. I know for myself, I don't spend a ton of time on the budget. It kind of gets thrown together. We have a couple little meetings about it. I know some towns spend hours and hours and hours going through, every line and every detail. We don't. I rely on my CFO to throw that all together and our administrator, and then I kind of go over that one-page summary of what's going on, unless we have some policy initiative that we want to do. We want to add, years ago we added firemen and EMTs, and so we expanded services. So for those occasions it might, it's a lot more detail, but I know you guys spend a lot of time going through I know some towns that just go through every line, $200. I just don't, no, I would do this a lot, would have been done a long time ago if that's what we were doing. Let me just, some of my other thoughts. Although Facebook, social media, man, really don't use it. I now have I have residents, I don't always have so much employees, but I have residents that report, things that are wrong on the street by messaging me on Facebook. And it's like I'm like a parent, because I refuse to respond to them. I write to them and tell them, you can email me. It's on the website. It's all over the place, ways you can contact me. But messaging me on Facebook, that doesn't cut it. And beyond that, not to use it as a way of communicating, but beyond that, you and everyone that works with you needs to be so careful and cautious about what, if anything, you post out there, when you comment, what you say. It never goes away. It can really hurt momentum. In fact, I was reading an article this morning about the president, with his tweets, that he, this morning, or late last night, that his Twitter account deleted the tweets in which he supported the senatorial candidate in Alabama who lost last night. And it was a whole story just about him deleting his tweets, and that there's some watchdog group that apparently, as every tweet comes up, they have a record, it's duplicated. They have copies of everything. So it never gets deleted, it never goes away. The whole article was whether or not he's committing a crime, because for a president, everything he does and says and writes is archived and now part of federal government, and you can't destroy it. But social media has just become such a huge outlet, same as the emails and Oprah and those issues, getting on Facebook and making any comment about anything that's going on in town or even in just your life can come back and haunt. And it's really something that we should never use it to communicate, but it's certainly something to be really careful about. Let me see, a couple other tips that we found. Nope, it's here. One of the tips is don't ask questions to embarrass or otherwise put the other party on the defensive. I don't know, sometimes you need to do that. If it's in a closed room, you don't have the public around, you need to really lay out what the problem's going to be. If we go do this, this is what could very well be happening. Because a lot of elected officials don't get a full grasp of what might come from where, and you really need to help them out with that. And then I guess it's really just teamwork. It's really part of the finance officer fitting in with the rest of the departments. If it's working well, it's the greatest thing ever. If you've got everybody getting their budget prep together, pulling everything in, then it can be seamless, and it works that way with the elected official, that you can seamlessly provide what the consensus is in terms of your budgeting and financial issues. But it's also something that is really, a lot of responsibility for that sits in your office to help make that work, to help make all those departments begin to learn the rules and understand what the policy of your town is going to be in terms of putting financial issues together. Okay? Any questions? I apologize, but I'm talking too fast, guys. I'm kind of getting near the... I don't have a whole lot else. No questions, nothing at all. Nobody wants to talk about the Phillies or the Yankees or anything like that? No? 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 Well, it could take some time. It won't be a happy discussion, but it would take some time. Okay, John, I'm kind of there.
I think the award, Mayor, goes to you as being the shortest speaker here, so we'd like to commend you for that, okay? And our next session starts at 11:30, so please feel free to exit, have some coffee, and thank you once again for joining us.